So joining me today is Major Cameron Lillyquist, who is with the Wake County Sheriff's Office. And Major, I know you and I worked on many, many cases over the years, but if you could, give us just a little bit of your background.
Well, I started with the sheriff's office in 1999. I've worked in various divisions. I was promoted to investigator in 2006. I had the opportunity to work on many high-profile murders between the time I was promoted to this time. Michelle Young, the Latrese's murder, and then we also had Anika Wilson around the same time. So it was kind of a crash course. I've kind of served in different ranks throughout my career in different divisions, special operations. I'm currently a major of our criminal investigation division.
And I know we talked a little bit before we started the interview, but handling these cases, you almost have to compartmentalize your emotions because it is so difficult. You're dealing with people's lives, you're dealing with devastated families, you're dealing with some pretty brutal information, especially when it comes to autopsies and autopsy photos.
Right. Yeah, you're seeing the worst of the worst on a daily basis. And then we go home, we're like everybody else. We've got families, we've got spouses, and we've got to turn that off. And it's difficult. And I've had some hard times throughout my career. But at the end of the day, the satisfaction that victims and their families get from successful prosecution is the most important thing to me.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had the opportunity to know many investigators, homicide investigators, and also prosecutors. And the good ones are the ones that the families basically say, we don't know what we would have done without these people on our team. So this was a particularly bizarre case, and I would say, in many ways, of all the cases I've ever covered, this was a puzzle, a complex puzzle that you guys had to figure out pretty quickly because you figured out that you had a murderer out there and you needed to find that person. So tell me about your first thoughts. The report goes out. We have a body along I-540, which is a major highway in the Raleigh area. What did you think?
Well, I was halfway downtown. I had just come off a homicide, I believe, the weekend before, where I was the lead investigator. So I was exhausted. I still had adrenaline going with that. But I was on the way downtown. My sergeant at the time called me and said, "Hey, we've got a body on the side of 540." My first thing was that maybe it's going to be a vehicular death. Almost fingers crossed. It was not going to be an intentional homicide. So I went out there. I just remember it being a super cold day. It had rained that evening. Pulled up, and I got out. Initially, went straight to the body and met with the deputies on scene. And once they pulled the tarp back, I mean, it was obvious it was a brutal attack. Very many stab wounds to the chest, neck area, a lot of blood loss. So it was. I knew that it was something big.
Right. This was not a hit and run. Somebody leaves a body on the side of the road. But at this point, you still don't know, did this happen here or did somebody do it somewhere else and dump the victim
Sure.
on the side of the road, Latrese Curtis? So, I know the first thing you do in an investigation is you start close to the victim, right? And then you move out. And in this case, you had her husband, Darin, really cooperating immediately.
Sure.
I mean, he's the one that finds her car. He's the one that calls it in. She had been at school the night before and had not come home, and he had woken up to her not being there, and he was concerned. And so, what do you find out from him when you start talking to him?
Prior to us even making contact with Darin, we're looking for an identification card for the victim, anything we can, any kind of personal effects. We don't see anything. We don't see it. We don't see a weapon, nothing in close proximity. It's obvious that she had been drugged because her clothing was in disarray. So it's like she'd been pulled away from the road or to the side of the road. So we're there probably a good hour, and I'm notified by one of the perimeter deputies that a gentleman had walked up saying that his wife was missing, that he believed that he found her car at a nearby off-ramp, just up from where we were.
And when you're first looking at something like this and the husband comes up, I mean, he's somebody you want to talk to because he's the closest person to the victim.
Sure.
And so you have to eliminate him, right, as a suspect.
That's correct. So yeah, so right off the bat, we got him in the car, did an informal interview just to have on record, and then we asked him if he'd go with us downtown. He did go downtown, and it was very cooperative. We gave him the official death notification down there. He was devastated, visibly devastated. At that point, we started the interview with him.
I want to back up a little bit because this body is on the side of the road, but off the side of the road. But you got calls from passersby. This is a very busy highway. And what did they tell you?
They just described seeing a body on the side of the road. I mean, to physically move a body, I see what the goal was to get above where the hill was and out of sight. But when you're talking about a deceased person, moving that just, I hate to say it, but dead body weight is very tough. So, but we had multiple passerbys saying, hey, there's a body on the side of the road. So, it just is not something that happens every day.
Yeah, and I remember, I think there were like a dozen calls because I think we requested the 911 calls. And of course, people are flying. They're going 75 miles an hour. It's the morning rush hour. They're on their way to work. So it's not like they can pull over. Right. They just see it and they immediately call you. So in a way, maybe there was an attempt to hide the body, but obviously it was not a good attempt.
Correct. It was a failed attempt.
Yeah. And so they were just like, oh, well. And I think it's interesting what you just said about moving a body in the movies, or let's say on Netflix. We watch a lot of true crime shows. They're not that true because they make it look a lot easier than it is because it really isn't. And, we'll get to the suspect later, but he wasn't a very big person. So, so you get Darin, you start talking to Darin, and what does he tell you about his wife's phone?
So he described last speaking with her the previous evening. She was an NC Central student. She called him on the way home saying she was going to leave. She was going to get something to eat. This is around 10 o'clock. He goes off to sleep, wakes up the next morning, and she's not in the bed. I think he immediately tries to call her, and she goes straight to voicemail. At some point, he accesses their joint cellular account and was able to see a number that she had been corresponding with that he didn't know. So he turns around and calls that number, and a male subject answers the phone. They have a short conversation. Is Latrese? Who are you, kind of thing. And at that point, neither one of them, I don't think they gave each other's identity, but it was enough that he knew that's not somebody that he knew Latrese to be in contact with.
So you start trying to figure out who this person is. Right. You eventually land on another student where she is taking accounting at night at North Carolina Central University. And he's also a student there. His name is Stephen Randolph. So you ask him to come in. So what happens?
So we make contact with Stephen. Stephen agrees to come down, but he gave the stipulation that he wanted to bring his mentor. We said, okay, it's kind of strange. So he shows up downtown Raleigh, accompanied by another male subject.
And that guy, you find out later, is not just his mentor, but roommate/landlord, is renting him a room in his house in Durham.
Correct.
But you bring him into the room without this person to speak to him.
Well, we have two interviews going on at the same time. One's Stephen is being interviewed, and then the second one, Robert Reeves, the other male subject, was interviewed, and I was part of that interview.
What did Stephen tell you guys?
Basically that he had met Latrese at classes at Central. They developed a friendship which led to it being intimate. He was not aware that she was married. I think he was told that she was going through a divorce. So he had no indication that she was going home to a husband at night. So that went on for several months, and Stephen gave more details of his living arrangements, and to include the gentleman that I was interviewing, Robert Reeves.
And it sounds like, as I recall, Stephen dated a lot of people. This wasn't, I want this woman to leave her husband for me. It wasn't like that. They were just in a casual relationship, as he was with several other women.
Right. That's correct.
So you talked to Robert Reeves, and right away, I'm assuming some things were not adding up. What were the red flags with him?
Well, right off the bat, when we had him there, we said, well, might as well do the interview with him as well because he may have some knowledge of the case. So he comes back, and right off the bat, he's very abrasive, very controlling in the interview, or attempts to be. He is forthcoming with information about their living arrangements, and then at some point and I think I've quoted this before. We go down this weird road that I was not anticipating on some disclosures he made. It wasn't even in my line of questions for my interview. So it took us in a completely different way.
Yeah, and I mean, without getting into too much detail, he was interested in Stephen Randolph.
Correct.
Stephen Randolph was not interested in him.
Correct.
And there had been a back and forth between the two men of Stephen, who's, trying to pay rent. He's got a good financial whatever situation here. And he's trying to keep this guy at bay, but he's not interested. He's interested in women. And so it sets up kind of this stress or between the two men.
Correct. I mean, at one point Stephen tells us that actually one of the confrontations got physical in a pass that Reeves had made at him. So
yeah, and
it was definitely an unwanted relationship. He was he was stuck in a situation that he couldn't afford to live on his own. This was a great deal, but it was almost like miserable living there.
Right. So I guess the wheels start turning, right? And you start thinking, okay, so if he likes Stephen and Stephen doesn't like him, and Stephen likes Latrese, maybe this guy had something to do with hurting Latrese.
Right.
And I know there were a couple pieces of evidence that really helped. We didn't really talk about this off camera, but I think this was a big one. There was that phone call talking about looking at her phone. There was this phone call to a friend, correct?
Yes.
Where it was like 2:00 in the morning. She couldn't hear anything. It was coming from Latrese's phone, but there was this gravel sound, right? Like a dragging. And that later you discovered or believed that was, shortly after she was killed, and the phone just dialed this woman.
And then I think you could clearly hear traffic going by, like a highway traffic.
So it made sense that not only was she killed, but she was probably killed there along the side of the road. So we talked about this as well, but this was a big deal. You had a highway patrolman, a trooper for the state of North Carolina, who saw a car on the side of the road, a Chrysler Pacifica, which is the same car that Reeves drives. And he stopped on the side of the road, saw this car. This was Sergeant Isaac Cooper. And how long before he told you, or you got the report that, hey, by the way, I was around that scene that night? Was it pretty quickly?
So when we put out our feelers to all of our partnering agencies, we also did like a DCI search. So we got notified pretty quickly that Trooper had located a vehicle, and right around that same time, I think we queried between 11 o'clock and maybe 3, and it narrowed it down, and it came back that Trooper Cooper had stopped at this vehicle. We reached out to him pretty quickly and got him to come down for an interview. He basically said he pulled up behind it, thought it was a stalled vehicle, and to make sure somebody didn't need help. Goes up, it's the driver's side window is partially down, and it's unlocked. He opens the door and you hear the clear chime, keys in the ignition. He's like, that's weird. Sees a woman's sweater in the passenger seat. Looks around, does his physical check, and then gets dispatched to a pretty serious call, I think on I-40. So he did say later on, after he cleared the I-40 call, he came back by and that vehicle was gone.
So he basically just finds this abandoned vehicle, which you are able to say, wait a minute, this is Robert Reeves' car. So you're now putting him at the scene.
Absolutely.
Of this. And that's a big deal because it was, a lot of this was circumstantial, right? This case. So you had to pull this all together. Tell us what you were able to piece together based on your evidence and what you learned in this case about what happened that night.
Well, I think I will tell you that Reeves in his interview, his alibi that he was in church that evening. So he had also had a roommate, his sister that lived at the residence, who we interviewed, and she was at church that night. We had evidence that she was at church that night, and she gave information that he was not there that night. We talked to other people in the church, same thing. He was not seen at that church, so his alibi kind of goes away. We did recover some items from a search warrant at his residence in Durham. There was some items of clothing that looked like they'd been burned. So in our mind, and we got a receipt for when a turkey pan was bought in the early morning hours. So who goes out and buys a turkey pan in the early morning hours? So our idea is that he's gone home. He's tried to burn whatever clothes he's worn that night. So we've got the night at church. Now the Chrysler Pacifica, literally exactly across where the victim was found, in the direct lanes of travel. It comes back to Robert Reeves. I mean, it's all coming together.
Yeah, and I mean, I know there were some issues about whether he turned the alarm off and on. There was a dog, and there was also some criminal records
Yes.
that you guys looked at. What did you learn about his background?
We had a history of sexual assault allegations, to include, I believe, a charge early on up in New York. So it's almost like he's got a pattern of this behavior.
And involving young men,
Right.
and of course, Stephen Randolph wasn't a child, but he was a young guy. He was a college student.
Sure.
And certainly somebody that if somebody is older and, in a position of power over
Right.
him financially in this
Well,
case.
Reeves told us that their relationship was based off of mentorship. So he was pitching him that he's this great mentor, he's this great servant of the church, and he's going to help this young child, or not child, but young man in life, to get him back on his feet, get him through school, and But I think all of this is going on, and he's falling in love with this guy.
Right. So it's basically a ruse. He's scamming him. Yeah. So you put together all of these things, and basically the story in court, because this eventually obviously goes to trial, is that he followed Latrese. Latrese was visiting Stephen after class at the house. Robert Reeves was there. Robert Reeves then follows Latrese onto the highway, somehow gets her to stop. I mean, that's always kind of the question of how in the world did he get her to stop? She pulls over, he pulls over, and then he kills her on the side of the road.
Correct.
What did you think when you guys finally put all the pieces together? Did you think this is just not the normal case? This is bizarre.
This is probably still to this day one of the most intricate cases that I ever worked on. Just all the components. And again, you and I spoke before that at the time we didn't have some of the cellular forensic tools that we have now. So we were literally doing old-fashioned police work then. So it was a case of circumstantial evidence, but I think when it started coming together, it rolled. And,
yeah, I mean, you made this arrest pretty quickly, and I remember we were both talking about that. We were both in the jail the night that he was brought in, and back in the day, they used to let the media just hang out with our cameras right there, on the side of the magistrates and shoot the person right through the window. And I remember looking at him and thinking, this doesn't make sense to me. I don't see this young, attractive woman having anything to do with this man. So why would he kill her? It made no sense. And I think, going back to the technology, I think one of the big things they tried to do was DNA
Yes.
and touch DNA from the cars. And I think it was complicated because obviously DNA science has come a long way.
Oh, absolutely.
And in court, I mean, what did you think of him in court, of his conduct? I mean, did you think he had any remorse?
No, I mean, he was cold the whole time. He was cold. I sat behind and just to watch him, there's no remorse, no emotion, just cold.
And you became close, as most investigators do, with the victim's family.
Right.
And I remember her dad. I mean, this was so out of left field. Nothing they would have ever imagined happening. And they were devastated.
Yeah. She was a daddy's girl, grew up sports with dad. But once she hit that age where she became a young lady, I think her dad she was the apple of his eye, and so I just, from the time that we did the initial notification to the time that we notified him of the arrest to the adjudication in court, they took it extremely hard. They still take it extremely hard. It's just, like I said, that's the most, that's the worst part of my job is having to notify families of loss. I mean, it's awful feeling for us in law enforcement, but it's better the feeling of an arrest and adjudication. It's so rewarding.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure you feel like all the work paid off. You got some justice for Latrese and her family.
Yes.
And finally, again, you've handled so many of these cases. Have you ever seen jealousy as a motive in this way? I mean, we've seen a lot of domestic violence cases. Sometimes, it can be jealousy, love, hate, money, but this is a really unusual way for jealousy to manifest itself into violence.
Yes. I mean, especially it'd be one thing if there was two parties, that one party was involved with two in the triangle, but this was not that kind of a situation. You had almost like this love obsession, and that was already been articulated. Hey, I don't want anything to do with you. Some sexual advances were made, but just this is the only one in my career that I've had anywhere near the kind of complexity of it.
Yeah, and you guys did a great job putting all the pieces together, because I think this is a case I will never forget for that reason. Well, thank you so much for sharing your memories of this, and appreciate your time and insight, and best of luck with your retirement, whatever that means, right? It's not really
we'll
going to be
see.
retirement.
Yeah. But thank you for having me.